Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Okay, so we are going to continue our learning for Mathematics KSSM Form 4 for Chapter 1, Quadratic Equations and Functions. So, today, we are going to focus on two learning objectives. Our learning objectives for today are, the first one, we are going to sketch graphs of quadratic functions, and the second one, we are going to solve problems involving quadratic equations. Okay, so the first one in which we are going to sketching, when we are going to sketching quadratic functions, these three are important steps in sketching quadratic functions, which are, the first one, we have to determine the shape of the graph. Okay, so for quadratic functions, in order for us to determine the graph, the shape of the graph, that means we have to focus on the value of a. Okay, and then second one, after we determine the shape, we are going to determine the y-intercept of the graph, in which for quadratic functions we look at the value of c. And the last one, we're going to determine the x-intercept, or in other words, we are going to find the roots of the quadratic functions. So shape, y-intercept and x-intercept are three things that we have to consider, that we have to find in order for us to sketch any functions. Alright, so let's see the first example. We have fx is equal to 2x squared plus 2x minus 4. Okay, so for this one, the first thing, as we already recalled just now, the first thing we have to determine the shape of the function. So here, we can see that for the shape of the function, the value of a in our function, in which 2 here is a positive value. So when it is a positive value, when we recall back, we already learned, the shape of the function will be a smiley curve or an upwards curve. Okay, and then second one, we are going to determine the y-intercept. So the y-intercept, we just look at the value of c. So here is the value of a. Okay, 2 is value of a, plus 2 is a value of b. So negative 4 here is the value of c. So automatically we get the y-intercept of the function is c is equal to negative 4. And then the last one, we are going to find the x-intercept of the function, in which we are going to find the roots of the function. So we just solve. Okay, 2x squared plus 2x minus 4 is equal to 0. And then we simplify. Okay, always remember, in factorization of quadratic equation, we have to write down the general form in the simplified form. Okay, so when we simplify, we get x squared plus x minus 2 is equal to 0. And then we factorize, which we get x plus 2 times x minus 1 is equal to 0. So the roots will be negative 2 and 1. Alright, so based on all the information that we already have just now, in which we know that the shape of this function will be a smiley curve, and then the y-intercept is negative 4, the x-intercepts are negative 2 and 1. Therefore, the graph for the function will be like this. Okay, so here we have the shape, smiley curve, and then the x-intercept negative 2 and negative 1 here, and the y-intercept is negative 4. And we know that the axis of symmetry of this graph will be in between negative 2 and 1. Therefore, let's say here is the axis of symmetry, and therefore we have the minimum point is around here. Okay, alright, so it must be a symmetrical smiley shape. Alright, so let's see another example. Here we have a function fx is equal to negative x squared minus 3x plus 4. Alright, so just like before, we look at the shape of the function. It will be, because a is negative, alright, so as we recall, when a is negative, the shape will be a set curve. Okay, downwards curve. Alright, and then finding the y-intercept, here we have a is negative 1, b is negative 3, and c is positive 4. So therefore the y-intercept is 4. And the last one, we find the x-intercept, or finding the roots of the quadratic function, in which we are going to solve negative x squared minus 3x plus 4 is equal to 0. Okay, so in order for us to solve the quadratic function, we have to make sure that the value of a is positive. So we are going to change the symbols, which we have x squared plus 3x minus 4 is equal to 0. And then we do the factorization. We have x plus 4 times x minus 1 is equal to 0. And so the roots are negative 4 and 1. So combining all the informations we have just now, right, set curve, the y-intercept is 4, the x-intercept is negative 4 and 1, and therefore we are going to sketch a graph like this. Okay, set curve, the y-intercept is 4, the x-intercept is negative 4 and 1, and the axis of symmetry will be between the points, so it must be a symmetrical curve, right? Okay, so let's see the last example for this slideshow. We have f(x) is equal to x squared plus 6. Alright, so the first one, look at the shape. It is a positive. Okay, the value of a is positive, so it is a smiley curve. Alright, and then we're going to look at for the y-intercept. So c is equal to 6. Okay, here we have a is equal to 1, b is 0 because no coefficient for x, and c is 6. And in order for us to find the root or s-intercept, we are going to solve x squared plus 6 is equal to 0. So rearrange the equation. We have x squared is equal to negative 6. But we cannot solve x squared is equal to negative 6 because there will be no square root for a negative number. So therefore, we make a conclusion there is no root for the function. When there is no root, we know that when b is equal to 0, the axis of symmetry will be the y-axis. So when there is no root, that means there is no x-intercept for the function. And therefore, when we combine all this information, the shape, the y-intercept, there is no root, and we know that the axis of symmetry is the y-axis. So how are we going to sketch the graph? So this is the graph for y is equal to x squared plus 6, in which we know that this is a smiley shape, no x-intercept, so that means there is no lines of the curve, okay, intersect at the x-axis, and the y-intercept is 6. So it will be a floating curve of quadratic function, okay? And we can see here the minimum point, the axis of symmetry is actually the y-axis